Good morning, everybody. Today we're with Mike Zoosman. Um, Michael Zoosman is an ordained member of the Jewish Clergy and Board of Certified Chaplains with NAJC Neshama. Is that correct again?
Yeah, Neshama. Very
Okay.
good.
Association of Jewish Chaplains. He served as Jewish prison chaplain for the federal prisons of the Pacific region of the Correctional Services of Canada from 2009 to 2012. Since then, he has worked full time as a chaplain in the psychiatric hospitals and medical surgical hospital settings. He currently works as a multi faith chaplain at a federal research hospital in the U.S. Michael is the founder of, now this is another one I butchered. Is this L Chain?
Very close. L'chaim.
Okay, L'chaim, Jews Against the Death Penalty. A
Close
group,
enough. There you go.
okay, a group with over 1,200 members worldwide, and that is and corresponding with individuals of all spiritual traditions who has been awaiting state-sponsored killings on various death rows throughout the country as he seeks to mobilize the Jewish and non-Jewish worldwide against the abomination that is capital punishment. Um, Michael, why don't you share a little bit about your background? I know you were a Jewish rabbi, correct?
Well, I'm Jewish clergy.
Okay.
My religious title is cantor.
Okay.
Rabbi is the title that most people know, and that's most common in the Jewish world. But a cantor traditionally leads a congregation in song and prayer, and it comes from the word to cant or to chant. So the chanter of all the prayers. And increasingly over the years, the cantor also does a lot of pastoral care and spiritual care for members of the congregation and community.
Wow, I think that's awesome, especially with your work that we've just read that you did within the prisons, and that was Canada, correct?
Yes, I was a Jewish prison chaplain for essentially about 11 federal prisons in British Columbia. I was based out of Vancouver, and I would drive to the different prisons in British Columbia to provide spiritual care for people identifying as Jewish.
Yeah, do they have the death penalty in Canada?
No, blessedly they do not. It was abolished in the 70s. The last remnants of it, I believe, were abolished toward the end of the 20th century for military and other aspects of it. And it was not in play when I was a prison chaplain there, thank God.
Yeah, and I have a friend that's over in the UK. She said there's only one country in Europe, and it starts with an M, I forget what the name was, that still does capital punishment. And Russia hasn't done any in, I think, 30 years.
That's right. There's one country in Europe that still holds on to it, and Russia has not executed anyone in a long time. So
right.
The trend, my understanding right now is that 70% of nations across the world, 70% of nations across the world that have abolished the death penalty.
Right, and Ohio is just about to abolish it. They have a bill that's in the Senate right now, and they have the Republican support to do away with it.
May it be from your mouth to God's ears, as the Yiddish expression goes. May it be so. I hope and pray that you're right.
Right, there, because I write I JP a few guys on death row in Ohio that claim to be innocent, and I just hate the idea to know that somebody's life is so worthless that they want to sit down and execute them. And our governor is determined to keep it, though. But his own colleagues are the ones that's opposing the death penalty now in Ohio. So
I have great respect for your work and the work that I know is going on through abolitionist organizations throughout Ohio to help make that happen. And I could go Ohio. That's all I can say.
Well, I remember when I first talked to you, and I was kind of up in arms. I mean, wasn't sure really about the death penalty because I always worked on pro reform in Ohio. So I was trying to find a reason to really support the death penalty, and you kept talking to me, about it, and you were the one reason that I kind of, turned the other way on it. You know,
Oh my, I didn't know that. Well, that's
yeah.
a great honor.
I remember we were talking about blacks being executed, whites being executed, and I thought it was about 50-50. And you gave me some statistics. I remember, you know, so you were instrumental in that. And it's not that I necessarily supported it. I shouldn't have said that, but I really wasn't sure. I grew up in a Republican family, so I know what I was taught. But now my family doesn't necessarily support it, completely.
Sure.
So
Sure. And you're not alone. I mean, frankly, I myself and many others I know, I used to support the death penalty before I became a prison chaplain, before I learned more about it.
Is it against the Jewish faith to do executions?
Well, it depends who you ask. The Jewish world is a very diverse world. It's not like the Catholic world, which is, officially very, very hierarchical and very centered, with papal decrees and church law.
Right.
The Jewish community has many denominations and many factions, and on the left and the right of the political divide. So it's I don't know the exact statistics in the Jewish world of late, or the latest poll, but my sense is it's fairly divided. It's fairly down the middle. I think my sense is it's a little more for people who are abolitionists than not, but I can't quote you exact figures.
Right.
But my goal is to mobilize the part of the Jewish community that is against the death penalty for the various reasons that in Jewish culture and in Jewish law and in Jewish religion, it has been essentially legislated out of existence, in my opinion.
Right, and then I noticed that you have support from all religions. Well, Christians, Islam, Catholics, because I noticed that some of my friends a lot of my friends are on your page that are from different religions. So this is a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is a way to be able to come together and educate people. If anything, we need to educate people first, and you would be better at that than I would be, but we do need to educate people on the tragedy of the death penalty. There's so many victims around, and it's sad for kids to know their dad's being killed, or their wives, or mothers, or fathers. And then on the other side, the day of the execution, the people are laughing and cheering when it takes place. That is an abomination, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know that I would be more suited to educate, like you said. I think from your experience and your life experience and everything that you bring to the table, certainly just as much, if not more. But what I focus on is there are many elements of it, but really at the core of it for me, it comes from a very spiritual place that's tied into my Jewish identity. And I'm a third generation Holocaust survivor. My grandmother will be 101 on Christmas Eve.
Wow.
And she's a survivor of the Holocaust. And so that plays a big part of my identity. And I very much align with the school of thought that Elie Wiesel, who was who was a poet laureate and a Holocaust survivor who wrote the book Night and many other books about his experience. And he famously said of the death penalty, quote, "Death is not the answer." He said that about capital punishment. And that's where our group comes from. That the state-sponsored killing cannot stand. And when you add to that the fact that the most common form of the death penalty, including Ohio, I believe, is lethal injection.
Yes, lethal. They outlawed it.
Good.
But the governor wants them to bring something else back. I think it was Nevada that still hangs. You can be hung, firing squad. Just about everything in Nevada.
Yeah. Yes, certainly.
And South Carolina just brought back. I don't know if it was firing squad or North Carolina.
Right.
Yeah.
It was the firing squad, and the gas chamber is coming back in various states as well. And so any form of killing of prisoners, of state-sponsored killing of prisoners, really is just a non-starter for
Right.
us. But when you add to that the fact that the lethal injection was first put into place by the Nazis, that it was created by the personal physician to Adolf Hitler, Dr. Karl Brandt, as part of the Actio T4 protocol to kill people deemed unworthy of life. All the more reason to see it as a Nazi legacy. Now, I'm not saying that it's a Holocaust. Lahavdil in Hebrew, that means no. To differentiate it, I am a third-generation survivor saying this is a carryover of that Nazi legacy. And when you look at the gas chambers that are being erected in various countries and that are using the same gas, Zyklon B, that was used in the gas chambers in Europe, all the more reason to say this cannot stand.
Yeah.
And what l'chaim means to life, and that's where we stand.
I remember, I think I was in 8th grade. I had to do a book report, and I did it on Nazi Germany and what happened to the Jewish people. And I went home to my mom. I said, "Mom, these guys did nothing wrong, and they killed them." My mom said, "That's how evil people can be." You know.
Right. And when you look at people, like I know you're focused so much, which is wonderful, on wrongful conviction. When you're looking at people who are innocent, who I believe I have known and corresponded with, and who are languishing on death rows and are in line for killing, that, what more parallel does one need than the state-sponsored killing of an innocent person who's incarcerated?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's the same thing.
Yeah, innocent or even not innocent. I mean, it's just not a deterrent, to stop killing.
Yes, absolutely. I'm against the death penalty in all cases, innocent and guilty, 100%.
Yeah, and I have quite a few friends now on death row, and I never wanted to be friends with anybody on death row just because of what could happen. And now, some of them are innocent, and I asked my friend James, and I could say his name, he told me I could, James Tench. I said, "I bet everybody on death row says they're innocent." He said, "Oh no, just a handful. The other ones admit their guilt, but he said most have changed and some haven't because they choose not to."
Yeah, well, James, he would know better than me, but in my own experience and in interacting and corresponding and talking with people on death rows, that's been my impression as well. The very same, that there are some who claim innocence and others who acknowledge their guilt, and many have changed, and that's what I saw firsthand when I was a prison chaplain in Canada, is how people over time become they are not defined by the worst thing that they've ever done, and they change, and that was a big part of my own development in this regard.
Well, our country is so far behind what other people are doing. Granted, probably China is probably the most inhumane country to execute. It's not the people; it's the government. The people are great.
Yes, I agree. China and Iran. I know many people from Iran and from China who I love and I'm very close with, but the governments in those countries and others, but those certainly are toward the top of the list. I mean, the atrocities in Iran continue. Just yesterday, there was an article about how Iran's government was defending the execution of minors, of people under 18.
Yeah, I for a while there, I Googled up executions in other countries, and I had to quit doing it because literally, even at my age, that bothered me. But they showed a 16-year-old girl being hung in one of the Middle Eastern countries.
Yes.
And then they in another one, they shot and killed 2 were sex offenders. And I forget what the third one was. Then another country, they lay them on the ground and just keep shooting on them. I mean, are we going to get that? Are we going to get that hateful in our country?
Well, when you let in my opinion, when you let in what I call the Malach HaMavet, the angel of death, which is what this is, when you let that in the door, all bets are off. And that's what happens when we see these death rows that are, houses, literally rows of death. That's what they are, rows of death, where this whole culture is built around the fact that these people are waiting to die, waiting to be killed.
Right.
And all bets of morality are off when that happens, in my opinion. And so I fear that as long as we have this on the books in this country, the door for that is possibly open. We saw that very close to that with the Trump federal execution spree last year. He was, even allowed, the door was open to allow the killings, and he just let them go until the last minute. So almost 5 days before the end of his term was the last execution, and he would have done more.
Yeah.
So as long as that's allowed, it's an awful precedent that's set.
I think that, and I'm not saying that he would have stopped or anything, but I do think we need to educate those, in the power, in states and federal government, and some might see it differently if they were actually educated.
I hope so. Hope springs eternal. I wish that were the case. I think, unfortunately, I've become a little jaded in that regard, but I think you're right to remind me that we should always try to educate, and hope that with that education, people can change. Right. Just as people on death rows and in prisons change over time, that people, once educated to the reality of what they're doing, can also change. I believe still that at the core, people can change.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I forgot what I was saying. I'm trying to think what I was going to say.
That's okay. I just want to emphasize, I think as long as we are aligned, when you said you were looking up online executions in other countries.
Right.
And as long as we have this on the books in any state and federally, certainly, we are sharing the boat with those countries. This is the company that we keep. We are not doing what Iran does. We're not doing what China does, but we are killing people, and we are on that side of the divide.
Yeah.
And until we abolish and join the 70% of nations who've done that, this is where we are.
I think we're getting closer, but I believe in the United States is a little bit different than some countries, where in the United States, each state has to vote on it, I believe.
Yes, each state, but the other difference, and we do have the federal. So there's the federal one is one that the Congress has the power to change. And if we had a Congress right now that would pass this bill that's before Congress to abolish the federal death penalty, Biden has indicated that he would sign it. But we don't yet have the support needed with the filibuster. That bill passed into law. But if that were passed, it would abolish the federal death penalty.
Another thing we could do is put it on the ballot.
Yes, and I defer to more seasoned folks who know about that. I know in California that has happened multiple times, and that certainly in certain states is an option. I don't know all the legalities myself, but whatever means can be possible, I certainly support it.
Yes, and that's why we need to start going to meetings within the country, pass out literature, talk to people. I've gone up to prisons and just handed out our business cards before, especially when I was in there to talk to a prisoner.
Sure.
And sometimes we got great support, and sometimes the prisoners are just tired of empty promises. That's why we can't promise anybody anything, but they're tired. Back in 94 in Ohio, we had the Lucasville riots, one of the worst in the country. And, and that was just over stuff that's happening now. And I'm hoping we never get to that point again, because I don't support violence.
Amen. I join you in that. I as much as I hate the death penalty, I support nonviolence, and I am for nonviolent intervention and change.
Well,
Stop this.
Talking from a clergy's viewpoint, how can we get other religions all to work together?
Certainly. I think, in my opinion, a big part of that is the responsibility that clergy have to speak from the pulpit about this issue.
Right.
The issue of human rights needs to be central to a spiritual practice and to philosophy. And the right to life has been established, and it's the violation of the right to life is the core of what this is. And,
right. And I'm very pro-life.
Right. So there's a reluctance, however, for a lot of clergy, in my opinion, regardless of the spiritual tradition, to speak about this from the pulpit for fear of it becoming political.
Right.
Now, in my mind, this is not a political issue. This is a human rights issue. Other people will argue differently, but
I agree with you. It's a human rights issue.
Yeah, and we as clergy have a responsibility to speak truth to power. So we need to be speaking about this from the pulpit. I've encountered resistance in various corners when I've offered to come and speak about this because people fear, it's too divisive or too political.
Yeah.
Well, then what are we doing? Then what is the point of being a spiritual, trying to be grounded in spiritual values and beliefs? What's the point? I mean, why even have it if we're not going to allow these important, crucial life and death questions to be spoken from the pulpit? Where are they going to be spoken from?
Right.
I
think if you don't preach the truth, you're not doing what God would want you to do, in my opinion. I'm not a pastor, but, you would think God would want you to speak the truth. And we know that, life is precious from the moment of conception to natural death, as Republicans say. So that's where they're coming to the point about the death penalty. And I brought up to a few of them. I said, but he said to natural death. That doesn't mean being executed or putting a needle in your arm.
Exactly. And there is nothing natural about that. And that comes to a point that I want to also emphasize, which is in corresponding myself with a lot of people in line for killing, what has become clear to me, which I didn't appreciate or understand before, but which other people before me knew certainly, is the element of psychological torture that comes into play when a person is told that they're going to be put to death at a certain time, a certain date, and counting down the days. There is nothing natural about that. There is nothing appropriate about that. I mean, the Psalms we read in Psalm 90:12 teach us to number our days that we may attain a heart of wisdom. Well, this is not what they were talking about. That we should know the day we're going to die. I work as a hospital chaplain, and people who are very sick and often terminal, but it's not that we know the date that they're going to die. This I've seen impact people who are in line for killing to the point of attempting suicide, to the point of losing their minds, and it's torture.
As much as I'm against suicide, that's probably what would go through my mind.
Certainly not. I don't judge them at all. I have not been in that position. It's not for me to judge. I have no idea how I would respond if I were being told, okay, here's your death warrant, 90 days, and then counting down each day. I can't imagine. Imagine.
Talking to some of the guys in Ohio, if they do away with the death penalty, that some of them are telling me they'd rather be executed than have life without parole.
Life without parole is known by many as the other death penalty. And in my opinion, if the whole Department of Corrections is supposed to be corrections, then what is the point of taking away the possibility of parole?
That was another question I was supposed our president Charlotte wanted me to ask you about your opinion on life without parole. Her husband has that, and he's wrongfully convicted. But I see that you're opposed to that as well. Good.
Yeah, as you noted at the beginning, I've worked in psychiatric hospitals. I've worked in prisons. I have met people who I feel are certainly not as I've known them, safe for themselves or others to be in society, whether it be for mental health reasons, unresolved addiction issues, other issues that I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, but in my opinion, it just wasn't. They weren't there in a place where they could be safe to be in society. So, however, that doesn't mean that one day there might be. And for me to say, no parole, there's no possibility that you will ever change, is anathema. Am I God to say that this person will never be able to change? I can say what I see right now, and that if the person's not safe, then they need correction, as it were, rehabilitation, treatment, a secure environment where they're not going to harm others and themselves, yes. But to say never a possibility of returning to society, which is why, anyhow. So that's my position.
Right. Well, I think that is really awesome. We need more people like you, and we need to really start campaigning from state to state. Let's abolish it in the United States, and then there's other countries that still need China, and I don't know if there's hope there or not, but
it's hard. I'm not an expert on China, but I know that one of the problems with China in terms of the death penalty statistics is so much of it is shrouded in mystery. We don't even know the length, the amount of people that are killed every year. We know that it's a high number, but so much of it is kept secret. They have these execution vans. I've heard that they send around. And,
you saw that. Yeah, I did too. Yeah, but they would take out. I seen one where they took out. There had to be over 100 women. And they had them kneel on the ground and then shoot each one, and they just went down the line like it was nothing. So I know there's no country that can beat them in murder like that.
As far as I know, they are at the forefront of state-sponsored killings, and I don't know. I hope we can see the end of it in our lifetime. I don't know.
Well, it's going to take each one of us to be involved in that. How can people get a hold of you if they would like to? If they need assistance or advice on the death penalty or someone that is incarcerated?
Well, there are two. The one organization that I very, very much support, I'm an advisory board member, is Death Penalty Action.
Abe Bonowitz,
Abe Bonowitz, and he's been doing this work much longer than I have. He's part of the reason that I've gotten so involved. He helped. I attended an execution vigil of what I believe was an innocent man, and he. That's where I met him, and he told me his story, and so I very much support the work of Death Penalty Action. They have amazing resources to link people for becoming active and engaged in abolition. The Death Penalty Information Center is another wonderful, and I think that's one of the links that I sent you that time when you were referring to our first conversation.
Yeah, you did.
They have great information that's used by the courts actually in evaluating the death penalty, and scholarly information on every issue you can imagine: deterrent, racism, innocence, gender. They do wonderful work, and there are other organizations as well. I also very much have a lot of respect for the Death Row Soul Collective, which gives voice to the artistic expressions, poetry, art, and prose to people on death row.
I think I've seen that.
Yeah, Jessica and Kareen, two wonderful abolitionists who have created this amazing forum to give a voice to this collective, the Death Row Soul Collective. I'll highly recommend that for people as well.
Well, I'd love to have an opportunity to meet you sometime. I don't do much traveling anymore. Last year, I went in for a brain scan, and I was allergic to contrast dyes, so it caused me to go into cardiac arrest twice and have 2 strokes. So,
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh!
but God was behind me there, because there's even the chaplain there said he's never seen anybody survive that. The chaplain came down to pray with me, and I kicked him. I don't know why I did that.
Wow. Okay.
But
You were drawn to attention. That's great.
right.
Well, I wish you refuah shlema, a full healing. I wish you good health, and certainly for the woman you mentioned who's in hospital now with COVID. I just hope everybody that you know is safe, particularly now at this time.
Well, I appreciate it, Mike. People can call you chaplain, right? Because that's really what your title is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Either way, and I'll leave you with this little story. You may not know it, maybe you do, but I found out recently that Saint Nicholas, who is the obviously Santa Claus is based on Saint Nicholas. There's a story where he was intervening to stop executions. That he and I was so we're talking on the heels of Christmas here, so I just thought I would add that. And I'm going to be sharing that with some of my pen pals.
Is that true though?
Well, I mean, this is officially. I saw it posted by different people that I respect, who are Christian scholars.
Right.
I'm not a Christian scholar. I don't. But if you look up Saint Nicholas and death penalty, you'll be amazed what you might find.
That's neat though, and I'm glad you did bring that up. And if people have a time, please sign up for Mike's group page. What's the name of your group page again?
Sure, it's L'chaim Jews Against the Death Penalty. All are welcome. Obviously, anybody who supports our cause, whether Jewish or an ally, who's an abolitionist, are all welcome to our page. So it's L'chaim Jews Against the Death Penalty.
And that is very educational. You'll see Mike post daily on there. And I do read all your posts, by the way.
Thank you.
But we do appreciate you joining us today, and I'd love to have you on sometime again. I'd like to have you and Sandy Freeze both on. Sandy's been a big ally. She's got an awesome book she just finished.
Yes, she is outstanding in her advocacy and her leadership, and I support her 100%. And I have a copy of her book. So
yeah, I do too. And she was the one that actually recommended you recently for the interview, and I'm saying, I know that name. Then I Googled up. I said, oh, I did talk to her once before. So,
yes, she's wonderful. The United States Injustice System. That's her new book.
Right. And I encourage people to order it, and let's support each other in our cause. To support those who are on death row, wrongfully convicted, pro-reform. We need to work together in unity.
Amen. We are stronger together. That's for sure.
Thank you so much, Mike, for joining us.
Okay. Happy holidays and a happy new year.
Same to you, my friend.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That is Mike from who is the Jewish chaplain, outstanding guy. Please like his group page. He just said his name. Said the name of the group page. You could email us if you have any questions or any concerns. You could also email us for Mike, and I'll share it with him. Our email is changestartswithusohio@gmail.com. Again, it is changestartswithusohio@gmail.com. Our website is www.changestartswithusohio.org. And I can give you our business phone too. I just have to look it up. I know it's a 614 phone number. Okay. Our business phone is 614-634-3169, folks. So please call if you have any concerns, and please reach out. We'll pass your name out to Mike or your information if you like, if you need to talk with them. And I appreciate each and every one of you. God bless you and Merry Christmas.